Hey everyone, it's Kong again with another episode of Should You Summon. As always, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. Now, this week we've got a Destiny banner featuring the Saintess of the Ark, aka the new Langrisser mobile story version of Licorice. We've got Shilinka, and we've got Zerida, and this banner runs from September 1st to the 14th. As a Destiny banner, the first SSR you pull is guaranteed to be one of these 3 units that you don't already have. After you pop that Destiny guarantee, the banner's then treated like a normal rate up, meaning you'll have a 20% off banner rate, and then that 80% on banner rate is split evenly between these 3 characters, even the ones you already have. First up, we have the Saintess of the Ark. In her debut episode of Should You Summon, I likened her to Bozel. She does have many of the same pros and cons. She has great AoE and debuff output, but she can be vulnerable in an assassin-heavy meta. Now that she's been out for a bit, I thought it would be more appropriate for someone who's actually had some success with her to come on the show and give some thoughts. So, very happy to introduce a Twitch streamer who currently has a spot in the Apex Arena Season 11 Top 16. Welcome, Tenaciousrope.
Hey everyone, Tenaciousrope here from the Twitch side of things. So let's take a look at Saintess of the Ark, aka New Liko. Saintess is an AoE-focused mage capable of outputting large amounts of debuffs in a wide area, which is pretty fitting given that she's the Bozel from the Tensei world. Her talent gives her a nice boost to her intelligence and additionally applies a debuff every time she deals or takes damage. Pretty simple overall. She has 3 unique skills, which fit together nicely to form the skill set that she's going to want to use most frequently. First off, her 3C is a 3x5 line AoE, similar to the breath style AoEs found on many other mages, but with a couple of extra bonuses. It applies 2 random debuffs rather than the typical 1, and then also has a unique debuff that turns any holy units hit into demons. Second off, her unique 2-cost skill is another line AoE. This one's only 1 block wide, but 7 blocks long, giving her plenty of range to poke enemies with without having to leave the safety of her tank. This skill also applies 1 random debuff, and then additionally applies the incredibly rare Unable to Act Again debuff, which might not be super relevant in PvE, but can really mess with people in PvP. Finally, she has a 1-cost transformation skill, which is by far the most complicated part of her kit, but is also the piece which brings it all together and makes it work nicely. So after using the transformation, she gets a 20% damage boost, an extra point of mobility, and an effect that inflicts 2 additional debuffs every time she damages an enemy. Combine that with her talent, that's already 3 debuffs being applied after every hit, and that's before you even consider the effects of her AoEs. After that, for the next 2 turns, she can be controlled normally, giving her time to fire off her AoEs, but at the end of the second turn, she goes into a state similar to stun, where she can no longer be controlled. While in this state, she gains 80% hero damage reduction, but cannot move, be teleported, or be displaced, and at the end of turn, she explodes outward with a massive AoE along all lines adjacent to where she's currently standing. This AoE can hit friend and foe alike, so you'll have to be careful with your positioning not to get your other units caught in the blast. After that, she heals for 100%, and most importantly, resets all of her cooldowns by 3 turns. This cooldown reset gets her transformation back off cooldown, and additionally drops the cooldowns on the rest of her skills enough that they're either immediately available or will be available soon after transforming, letting her start the cycle all over again. Her exclusive, which isn't released yet on Global, prevents her post-transformation AoE from damaging allies if at least 2 allies are in 1 ring of her, and gives her a slight boost to the amount of healing she receives. However, the opportunity cost of running this exclusive over a different headpiece like Tenuous Headdress is pretty high, so it's not a very high priority piece of equipment to pick up. For factions, she's a member of Protagonist, buffed by Emperor Lavina and Matthew, Princess Alliance, buffed by Luna, Shelfaniel, and Christiane, and Mythical Realm, buffed by Gizaroth and Sage of the Trees. For bonds, she unlocks the incredibly valuable attack bond for the upcoming new Elma, who's supposedly a tank even better than Hilda. For her own bonds, she needs the original Licorice for her defensive bond and the original Florentia for her attack bond. In PvE, she can be used in general content, such as clearing story missions or Time Rift, but the cyclical nature of her transformation makes her not a great choice for the more super boss-oriented content of things like Eternal Temple and Ancient Beckoning. So how is she in Apex? Well, she's not going to be a super flexible automatic include unit for every box like, say, Lucretia or Wedamar. Rather, she's a good mid to late pick in an AoE-oriented box after you've already drafted a solid core to your team. Her repeated AoEs can quickly wear down and cripple a team, or just outright kill it with raw damage. And she's able to do so much damage thanks to her transformation giving her a built-in clock, freeing her up to run more offensive enchants like magic. Between her talent's int boost, her transformation's damage boost, and magic's skill damage boost, she's able to stack damage modifiers to greatly increase how much damage she can output. Her main drawback is that she's somewhat frail, meaning she'll be frequently targeted by assassins, but this can be mitigated by picking bulky troops such as Crystal Warlocks or Skeleton Knights, and then pairing her with teammates that provide some form of defensive support. For this reason, I personally like pairing her with units like Hilda, Christiane, Autocrato, and Bernhardt, who all provide some sort of defensive aura to help keep Saintess alive when she gets targeted by assassins. Offensively, she pairs well with units like Emperor Lavina, Bernhardt, Kruger, Bozel, and other such units that provide large amounts of AoE damage and debuffs to help Saintess overwhelm enemy healers and start killing the enemy team. Additionally, the anti-Actigan debuff from her 2-cost AoE is incredibly rare, meaning opponents will frequently forget about it in the middle of battle and attempt to use an Actigan skill, such as Elwyn's Reign of Glory or Kruger's Shield, only for their turn to end, giving you an easy kill. Overall, while she's not an overwhelming force and can require careful play and definitely team composition, she can certainly reward a player who's willing to put in the necessary effort, and for that reason she's quickly become one of my favorite units to use.
Alright, thank you so much for your insight and experience, Rope. Thanks for coming on the show. Now we're going to move on to Shilinka. Shilinka is an assassin who specializes in making your opponent spend all their time reading her skills. Her talent gives her a damage boost and damage reduction if she ends her turn with no allies within 2 spaces. She can revive once with 90% of her HP at the expense of being stunned for a bit afterwards. Her 3-cost skill is a single target attack. If your target has no allies within 2 spaces and you kill them, then you get to act again. If your target does have adjacent allies, you ignore 20 to 40% of their defense. You get one or the other effect depending on your enemy's positioning. Her unique helm boosts her damage dealt when entering combat, increases her self-buff duration, and prevents her buffs from ticking down when she's in her post-revive stun state. She's a member of Meteor Strike buffed by Zerida and Epsilon, and Mythical Realm buffed by Gizarov and the Sage of the Trees. For bonds, she unlocks the defensive bond for Evil God Kruger, and the attack bond for the King of the Red Moon. For her own bonds, she needs Brenda to unlock her defensive bond, and Rainforce to unlock her attack bond. For content, she's definitely designed more with PvP in mind, bringing a few of the usual sneaky assassin tricks to the table. She has a skill that ignores guard, she has a skill that teleports her, grants her +2 movement, and gives her a buff that lets her bypass soldiers if there's another enemy adjacent to the target. You can use this in conjunction with your 3C, since that ignores a chunk of the enemy's defense if there are adjacent enemies. Her biggest problem in the current meta is probably just that she's an assassin in a meta where boxes are already overflowing with competent assassins. And speaking of which, Zerida is another assassin. Zerida's talent boosts her crit rate and crit damage and increases mobility if you end your turn outside the danger zone. Her 3-cost skill is basically a toggle between her normal Alhazard and Killing Blow skills, and this opens up a slot for you to run something else. She also has a unique helm that heals her and removes a debuff if she ends her turn away from allies. She's a member of Meteor Strike buffed by Zerida and Epsilon, Mythical Realm buffed by Gizarov and the Sage of the Trees, and Dark Reincarnation buffed by Bozel and Licorice. If you have no adjacent allies within 1 space, her faction buff for Meteor Strike increases damage dealt by 10%, lets you move 2 spaces after defeating an enemy, and heals 20% at the end of your action. For bonds, she unlocks the attack bonds for Watham, Yulia, Farakia, and the upcoming new unit, the Sword of Light and Shadow, aka the new, overpowered 4th anniversary version of Zerida herself. She doesn't need anyone else to unlock her own bonds, you just need to upgrade her classes. For content, yet again, she's not a PvE specialist outside of general stuff like joint battles, but she has been an on-again, off-again Apex Arena assassin. One of her problems is that there are a lot more long-range threats nowadays, which means she doesn't really dominate map control as much as she used to, and it can mostly invalidate her talent. There are also enemies who make it difficult to maximize her damage, for example by preventing critical hits. She's still good, but there are a lot of good assassins out there now. Alright, so let's move along to the notes for noobs. Saintess of the Ark, as you've heard, is mostly a PvP-focused unit, and she's kind of a niche pick for specific types of boxes. If you run one of those kinds of boxes, and you don't mind investing in her, both in the unit and in the abilities and skills it takes you as a player to master her use, then go for it. Shilinka is alright. She's a niche unit for people who like to play with unique assassins. You can skip her unless you really need her for Kruger's Bonds, for example. Again, she's another one of those characters like Saintess who really rewards kind of knowing and understanding how she works, and how she works specifically for you in your specific box. Finally, Zerida is mostly past her prime, but now that she unlocks the all-important attack bonds for two highly impactful meta PvP units, that is Watham and the Sword of Light and Shadow, that's a different reason to summon for her now. So if you play PvP at all, you're going to want to be able to pick her up for her bonds. Finally, just my usual reminder about upcoming banners. The final week of this update cycle will give us the recurring Destiny banners featuring Brenda, Sigma, and Suzette, and Landius, Yulia, and Jugler. The week after that should be the launch of the next major update, which means brand new characters dropping, the Wandering Duelist, which is the new version of Brenda, and Julian, who's kind of an AoE specialty unit. Anyway, that's it for this episode, so let us know on the Discord or in the comments below whether you're planning on summoning on this Destiny banner, or if you're just going to skip this one and keep saving up. So thank you so much for watching, I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks of course to our Langrisser tier channel members for generously supporting the channel directly, so shout out to Levitt, Derek, Kate Soon, Jared Portela, Jerome Meyer, Shara Ilimerius, and Harambe, as well as to my recent new subscribers on Twitch. Thanks for watching the streams, thanks for watching this show. Happy Langrissing, everyone.